When my wife Sarah told me she was going on a week-long trip with her best friend Laura, I didn't think much of it. They had been close since college, and Laura's husband Mark was someone I had met a few times. We weren't friends, but we were cordial. Sarah said it was just a girls' getaway, spa days, wine tasting, maybe a little shopping. I smiled, kissed her goodbye, and went back to work. But what I didn't know was that this trip would shatter everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and friendship. The first 2 days passed like normal. I was busy at the office, coming home late, reheating leftovers, and watching some late-night TV. She texted me now and then, sending selfies of her and Laura laughing over wine glasses or posing by the pool. Nothing looked suspicious. Her words felt warm like always, and I told myself she deserved the break. She worked hard as a marketing consultant and rarely took time for herself. On the third night, I was sitting on the couch watching the news when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mark, Laura's husband. "Hey man, just checking in. Have you heard from Sarah today?" I frowned, wondering why he was asking. "Yeah, she sent me a couple of pics earlier," why Mark replied after a pause. "Laura told me she was feeling sick, so she stayed in the hotel today. But a friend of mine saw her downtown with Sarah and 2 guys." My stomach sank, but I brushed it off with a laugh. "Come on man, maybe they just met some locals and chatted a bit." Mark didn't respond right away, then he sent a short message. "Bro, I don't think so. I didn't sleep much that night." A weird unease settled in my chest, but I told myself I was overthinking. Sarah wasn't like that. She loved me. The next day my unease grew. She didn't text until late afternoon. When she finally did, it was a short "Hey baby, just got back to the hotel, tired, gonna rest now, love you." I stared at the screen, feeling like something was off. Her messages were usually full of details. Where she went, what she ate, little inside jokes between us. Now they felt empty. Mark called me in the evening. He sounded tense. "Man, I know this is awkward, but I think something is going on. I saw some pictures on Facebook from one of Laura's old college friends who lives in that city. They were at a rooftop bar last night. Laura, Sarah, and 2 men, and not just sitting across the table. They were close, like really close." My throat felt dry, but I told him I needed proof before jumping to conclusions after the call. I scrolled through my phone, staring at Sarah's last photo from the trip. She was smiling, wearing that floral dress I loved. I wanted to believe that smile was for me. The trip ended 2 days later. When she came home, she hugged me tightly. Her perfume filled my senses, and for a second, all my doubts faded. She looked tired but happy. We unpacked together. She told me funny stories about the spa, about Laura's hangover after too much wine. Everything sounded normal. But late that night, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I don't make a habit of checking her phone, but something in me broke that rule. It was a message from Mark's number, but the words froze my blood. "Can't stop thinking about last night. Wish we had more time." Before I could read further, she stepped out of the bathroom. I quickly placed the phone back and pretended to be half asleep. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. I told her I had to leave early for work, but instead I drove to Mark's house. When he opened the door, his face was pale, like he already knew why I was there. We sat in his living room, both of us avoiding eye contact. Finally he said, "I'm sorry man, it's Sarah. I found out she's been seeing me behind your back for months. It started with some flirty messages, then they met when you were working late. That trip, it wasn't for Laura and Sarah, it was for them." The words hit like a punch. I felt dizzy. I wanted to scream to deny it, but deep down I knew he was telling the truth. The signs had been there, and I ignored them. I drove back home in silence, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. When I parked outside, I sat in the car for a long time, staring at the house that I once thought was my safe place. Every wall, every picture, every memory now felt poisoned. Inside, Sarah was in the kitchen making coffee, humming to herself like everything was fine. I walked in and she smiled good morning like nothing had happened. I tried to smile back, but my face felt stiff. I told her I had to work late and left again, but I didn't go to work. I went to a small cafe across town and sat there for hours trying to figure out what to do. By afternoon I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to shout or throw things or give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. I would be calm, I would be quiet, and I would make her think she had gotten away with it until the moment I took it all back from her. I called Mark and told him we needed to work together. He agreed immediately. We both deserved the truth in full, and we both deserved to see them crumble under the weight of what they had done. The next few weeks were a blur of quiet planning. Mark and I began exchanging screenshots and messages, piecing together their affair like detectives. They met in hotels during lunch breaks. They had codes for when one of them was free. They even joked about how clueless we were. Every message was a knife twist. but each one also made me more determined. One night I suggested to Mark that we catch them in person, not just catch them, but make sure they could never lie their way out of it. Mark liked the idea. We waited until Sarah mentioned she was meeting Laura for a spa evening. Mark tracked Laura's phone through a location app they had once used on a trip. It wasn't anywhere near a spa, it was at a downtown hotel. We drove there together in my car, the city lights blurring past. I felt strangely calm, like the worst had already happened, and now I was just turning a page in a book I didn't want to finish. We parked across the street and walked in through the lobby. The receptionist didn't even glance at us. As we went to the elevator, Mark knew the room number from a receipt Laura had carelessly left at his house. When we reached the floor, my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Mark and I looked at each other, and then he knocked 3 sharp knocks. Then silence. I could hear faint movement inside, a muffled laugh. The door opened halfway, and Sarah stood there, wrapped in a hotel robe. Her smile froze when she saw me behind her. Mark's wife Laura was sitting on the bed wearing the same kind of robe. And the worst part, both of them looked at us, not with shame, but with annoyance, like we had interrupted something important. I didn't speak at first. I just walked in slowly, looking around the room, the wine glasses on the table, the clothes scattered on the chair, the way the air smelled like perfume and betrayal. Sarah started to say, "It's not what it looks like," but I laughed, not a happy laugh, a laugh that came from a place so deep it scared even me. I said, "Sarah, I know exactly what it is, and I know exactly what I am going to do about it." Mark took out his phone and started recording. Neither of them tried to stop him. Maybe they thought we wouldn't use it, but we would. Every second of that night was going to be the proof that ended the lies. We left without another word in the car. Mark asked, "What now?" I told him to wait and see. I wanted this to hurt them the way they had hurt us. Not in one loud moment, but slowly, in a way they would never forget. Over the next month, I started moving money from our joint account into one in my name. Only, I changed the locks on the cabin I had inherited from my grandfather. I spoke to a lawyer and laid out every detail, every message, every video. Sarah thought I was just busy with work. She had no idea her entire life was being rewritten without her. Then, on a quiet Saturday morning, I set the final plan in motion. I made breakfast for her like I always did: pancakes, coffee, fresh fruit. We sat at the table and she talked about maybe taking another trip with Laura in the summer. I smiled and said, "Actually, you won't be here in the summer." She frowned, not understanding. I slid a folder across the table. Inside were divorce papers, bank statements, and still shots from the hotel video. Her hands shook as she looked through them. I told her she had 24 hours to pack her things and leave my house. She started to cry, saying it was a mistake, it didn't mean anything. But I just got up and walked away, leaving her sitting there with the life she had destroyed. Mark did the same with Laura that same weekend. By Monday, both women were out of our lives, and for the first time in weeks, I could breathe again. But revenge didn't end there. We posted the video privately to a few mutual friends who we knew couldn't keep a secret. Within days, it had spread quietly through our social circles, not to humiliate them publicly, but to make sure the people they valued most saw exactly who they were. Sarah tried calling me for weeks after that. I never answered. I didn't block her because I wanted her to know I was choosing silence over her. That was my final word on the matter. The first few days after Sarah left were strangely quiet. The house felt bigger, emptier. I kept expecting to hear her footsteps in the hallway or her voice calling from the kitchen. Instead, there was just silence, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator or the ticking of the wall clock. I didn't cry, I didn't break things, I didn't even drink to forget. I just existed. I woke up, went to work, came home, ate alone, and went to bed. It was like living in a paused movie. Mark and I stayed in touch. At first, we would check in on each other, share little updates. He told me Laura had moved in with her sister and was already posting pictures on social media like nothing had happened. I told him Sarah had moved out of state to stay with a cousin. We both agreed not to dig too deep. We had enough poison in our systems already. One evening, I went for a long drive. No destination, just miles of road and the sound of the engine. It was early autumn, the trees starting to turn gold and red. I pulled over at a quiet overlook and sat on the hood of my car watching the sunset. That's when it hit me. It wasn't just that Sarah had cheated. It was that the person I thought she was never really existed. I had loved an idea, not a reality. And that hurt more than anything. I started going to the gym again, at first just to burn off the restless energy. But soon it became a routine. I felt stronger, more grounded. I even joined a local hiking group where I met people who didn't know me as the guy whose wife cheated. They just knew me as me. That felt like a gift. One day, about 3 months later, I got an envelope in the mail with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with just 2 words written on it. I'm sorry, no signature, but I knew the handwriting. I didn't feel anger reading it. I didn't feel forgiveness either, just nothing. I folded it once, put it back in the envelope and dropped it in the trash without a word mark. Eventually started dating someone new. I met her once at a coffee shop and she seemed kind different. It gave me hope that maybe we could both find someone who wouldn't. To treat loyalty like a disposable thing. A year after the divorce, I went back to the cabin my grandfather had left. It had been locked up for months. When I opened the door, the air smelled of cedar and old memories. I spent the weekend there alone, chopping wood, cooking on the old stove, sitting by the fire at night. I thought about how life had turned upside down, and yet here, I was still breathing, still standing. The betrayal hadn't destroyed me. It had just burned away the parts of my life that weren't real. The truth is, I'll never understand why Sarah chose to do what she did. Maybe she was bored, maybe she wanted excitement. Maybe she just didn't care enough to stay, but I've stopped asking. The answers won't change the past, and they won't build my future. Now when I think about that hotel room that night, I don't feel rage, I feel clarity. It was the moment I woke up, the moment I saw the truth without the filter of love or trust. And while it broke something in me, it also freed me. Because once you've seen the truth, you can never go back to living a lie. I know someday I'll meet someone new, someone who won't make me question every text, every trip, every smile. Until then, I'm okay being on my own. I've learned how to enjoy my own company, how to fill my days with things that make me stronger, not weaker. And if Sarah ever wonders whether I still think about her, the answer is simple. Only when I need a reminder of how far I've come. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Secret Affairs Exposed for more powerful real-life stories like this one.